relationship, like the relationship that you have, Anna, with your husband, is going to last not because of love, but because of commitment.
Hello, and welcome back to Dating Rehab with Anna Morgenstern. I have a very special guest today. I have Scott Graham with me. He is an author, he's a coach, he has a podcast, and he is joining us from Vermont today. We're going to talk all about dating in your 50s, 60s, 70s, like that age range. So I'm really excited to have you on.
I like that 50, 60, 70, that age range.
That's like
The
the
old
group,
people age range, right?
The
That's
golden
it.
age.
The golden age.
I think ABC trimmed out the Golden Bachelor.
Right. I hear you. It's great to be here, Anna. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you do, how you even got into writing books and your podcast.
Yes. So I am working on book number 31, 30, and 32 right now. And all my books are on a wide variety of topics. Huge. Book number 32 is about hiking the GR20, which is supposedly the hardest hiking trail in Europe. And I've done that, and I talk about the logistics of that stuff. And the book that I'm working on right before that and wrapping that up is about collaboration in a relationship. It's called Cleared for Love, the co-pilot's guide to lasting relationships. And that metaphor really holds true throughout the book. I talk about how so often we fail to collaborate, or we decide that what we need to do is negotiate. And by the time we get to negotiation, we've already decided what's right for me. And then we're just fighting about it and what's not right for you. And I talk about the different ways that you can kind of set up ground rules early on in the relationship. Ground rules is a bad word, man. I set up a habit early on in the relationship so that collaboration is the norm and not negotiation or drawing a line in the sand or just leaving.
I'm going to go grab my husband. I'll be right back now. I love that. Tell us a little bit about your story. You were married for a very long time.
Yeah, so I was in a relationship for 31 years and a very successful relationship all the way across the board. A lot of times people are in these longer relationships and they kind of fizzle out and they become like roommates. And that definitely wasn't the case. My spouse had my back. I had theirs. We worked out stuff, everything from money to sex, the whole 9 yards. I had a very fulfilling relationship up until the accident, and my spouse burned alive in a car accident. And after that, I was in that was right before COVID hit. So that was in December of 2019, and then COVID locked us down. And that's when I'd written a number of books, but that's when my book writing really took off. I wrote one of my bestsellers, which is called Come As You Are, Meditation in Grief. And I talk about the kind of dealing with grief while you're in isolation. Because we were all locked. Remember how awful that was? We were all locked down. And that was a really difficult time. And then I wrote a follow-up book a few years later called Come As You Are 3 years later. Very clever title, I'll tell you, Anna. And then last year I wrote Come As You Are 5 years later. And then this past summer, after doing that, I kind of took everything from 3 or 4 books that I've written about grief and distilled them into one book called The Tao of Grief, which is a series of daily writings, 100 poems, I don't know what you want to call it, thoughts. That's been very popular because it hits home for folks. And it's I think really good because it's distilled from those other pieces. It's the wisdom that's distilled in 100 chapters. That's and people seem to really like that one.
Do you feel like the writing is kind of how you navigated your grief a bit? Was that the outlet that you used?
What I discovered, it's kind of like what you're doing with your podcast here. There are certain truths about dating that to be true and that are not in alignment with what people think about dating. It's really screwed up, right? And so you are on a mission to shift that viewpoint. And what I discovered as I was grieving was that probably 80%, I am not kidding you, 80% of how we handle grief in the US is completely screwed up. Not a little screwed up, completely screwed up. And I'm trained as a psychotherapist. I'm rostered psychotherapist here in Vermont. I'm a licensed alcohol and drug abuse counselor. I worked as a clinical supervisor for a big, huge rehab program. I cannot tell you how many people I harmed as a therapist and a clinical supervisor, pushing incorrect thoughts, incorrect beliefs, incorrect perspectives about grief.
Wow. What's it's like the biggest thing that you think that how we're handling grief incorrectly?
That it's a problem to be solved,
Mm,
and it's not a problem to be solved whatsoever. It is not something to be swept under the rug. It's actually, and this think about that. I know you work with widowers and people that are working
mhm.
on the dating piece. The depth of your grief is exactly equal to the depth of your love.
Wow.
And so your grief is actually a testament of a life fully lived. Because if you didn't give a shit about your spouse, or if you didn't give a shit about your kids, if you didn't give a shit about your parents, their death would have no meaning to you. You'd be like, ah, whatever, they're gone. Right? Lots of people have died today, and I'm not shedding one tear for them. They're distant in my life. There's no connection.
Mhm,
But the people that we open our heart to, that's profound. And
mhm,
and those folks that are grieving are in my opinion, I'm not just saying this about me, are actually great catches to go for, because what you know is that they can love deeply.
mhm.
They can love deeply. Somebody who's like, yeah, so and so died and I moved on, right? You're like, wait a minute here. What kind of relationship was that you were in? And we don't honor that in our society. We think it's something to be swept over. It's a problem to be fixed. Take medication, get over it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so now are
We
you
could do a whole grief topic here.
I know. Are you currently dating? How long did you give yourself before you're ready to go on dates again?
I remember like the first date that I had, and I really kind of fell apart after that piece. I felt like there was some betrayal and some guilt and some angst around that. And then the big piece for me, which, I really thought I had my shit together. Like really, I mean, totally. Like if you come up to me and said, "How's it going?" I would have been perfect. And that was in the summer of 2024, and then in the fall of 2024, I fell in love again. That was really difficult for me.
Mm,
Not because of what you might think. Like it wasn't about the loss or those other pieces. It was the fact that I knew that loving somebody deeply ultimately means that you are going to feel an awful lot of pain.
mm,
And grappling with that piece of wisdom in maintaining a relationship and not suffocating the other person, having room for myself, having equanimity, that all came out last year. And of course, there's no resources about any of this stuff. So then I wrote a book about that.
wow. Are you still together now?
No, they had stuff to work on, and I fell head over and heels in love. And so I'm dating somebody else now, and
Oh, okay.
there's a difference. There's like not the passion, but there is this incredible framework of potential. And so I've described it to people like anybody who's ever been out there and gone to a timeshare pitch and been to see
Oh,
a
yeah.
timeshare knows that those units are built like paper mache. They're total junk, total crap, but they make them look really, really pretty. Because they want your money for this. So they put a hot tub in there that doesn't work, right? And so you're like, oh my God, I've got to have this. This has a hot tub, right? But it's shoddy. Everything beyond what you look at is shoddy. And that relationship, we fall in love with superficial stuff And then we have to deal with the foundational stuff afterwards, right? We're like,
Mhm.
it's a good thing, and how we have to work on all those things, right? Communication, support, commitment, and you find someone who's got all of those things, but you don't have but you're not head over heels with the paint job. Well, you're gonna get head over. You can easily change the paint job, right? You
Mhm.
can easily fall head over in heels. I can tell you in 31 years, we fell in and out of love with each other.
Wow.
That's true.
You hear
Because
that.
because a relationship, like the relationship that you have, Anna, with your husband, is gonna last not because of love, but because of commitment.
Mhm.
If and so it's the same thing if you think of me as a human being emotionally. There's hard times and good times, independent of everybody else, right?
Mhm.
Some days are really good, some days are really bad. Some days I'm really happy, some days I'm really down.
Yeah.
And if we just look at the down days and say, I'm going to shoot myself whenever it gets below this amount, right? We don't, because there's a commitment to working through it. And people don't do that in a relationship.
I
Like,
know, we're very easy to pull the plug. It's usually after there's a kid or 2 and the couple stops being a couple, they're more like the roommates and they're not really fostering their sexual relationship, their personal relationship, and then next thing you know, someone's having an affair, all these things can happen, but you're right,
yeah.
it's the commitment.
And it's a commitment to say, I'm gonna work on this difficult stuff with you.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on it before we're never gonna have to go to the couples therapy because we're gonna work on all this stuff together.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, even I have friends, that move in with their boyfriends and they'll be living together for a long time before getting engaged. And even though that feels pretty committed because you're living together, there's something about having an engagement ring where you really feel the commitment. Like, he went out there, he spent a lot of money to show you that he wants you in his life. There's a commitment there. It's just very different. And so I tell the guys that I know that are living with girlfriends, like, you need to propose because all the arguments and problems you're having now, they'll be a lot better once you have a commitment because she's not going to go anywhere. There's no threatening the relationship. There'll just be a security that you'll have. So I actually don't believe in dating for years and years and years before getting engaged. I feel like most people that do that end up getting divorced really quickly versus, like in the religious community, people tend to date for a shorter period of time. They're really committed to the commitment and they have a lower divorce rate.
It's the Wizard of Oz thing, right? The scarecrow was like, "I'm really stupid." And then it's like, "You know what you're missing?" And the wizard gets him this thing, and suddenly he's like really smart. He
Mhm.
had all those things, but was missing that symbolic piece that represented that he was smart. And you're missing that symbolic piece that says that you're a couple and you're committed to each other.
Absolutely. What have been some of the biggest culture shock moments dating now versus last time you were dating, which I think you mentioned where it was the 80s?
It's why are you laughing? When were you born? Was that after the 80s? Was after I
No,
was
I'm
dating? You don't
86.
have to answer. You don't have to. This is the biggest culture shock. It's yellow because I keep losing it. I
I should do it for my husband. He also can never find his phone.
I have to use my watch to find my phone all the time. This is like a huge thing, because I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. He's similar age of me, and he's dating. And I'm like, "Do you remember, like, in the '80s, people, like, at least had to have their shit together, at least a little bit, to, like, get out there and meet," right? Now, anybody can create a profile on these sites and go after you.
Mhm.
And it's so forget there's no barrier to entry, and you don't even know what you're seeing when per se, when you get these pieces. So I wrote an article about Match.com and what a scam it is. I've got a blog, and that's my most popular article on the blog, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hits on this
I
blog.
am sure it's the
And
most relatable.
I'm writing another article about amount of scammers that are on
Mhm.
Match. And Match is kind of an upscale supposedly upscale, whatever. It's not Grinder, it's not Tinder, it's not, any of these other
Well, I think
things.
they know that they can prey on older people who aren't as familiar with technology or know the signs to look for scammers or fraudsters. I mean, I had a girlfriend's mother, she's early 70s, and I think it was on Match.com. I mean, one after the next scammer, scammer, scammer. And I was like, how are you even getting into the situations? Are you asking to do a video chat early on if if you're not in the same city, or even if you're not comfortable meeting them in person, do a video chat at first. And she said, "Every time I ask to do a video chat, that's when they disappear." I was like, "'Cause they're not who they say they are." They're catfishing you for whatever reason, but and so I told her, like, "That's the number one
So
rule."
here's a statistic for you. Are you ready for this? So on Match, if I like somebody and they don't like me back, I go off into the atmosphere. No record if I'm whatever. If two people like each other, there's a connection, but Match doesn't necessarily think that you guys are like somehow engaging with each other just because you've done likes. But if you send them a message, then Match thinks you've somehow connected to that person. So since September, every person that is so if they think you've connected to that person and that person turns out to have a fraudulent account, you get a message from Match that says, just alerting you that we've deleted so and so's account because they had a fraudulent account. Don't continue to talk to them offline, blah, 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 blah. It's a
Mm,
generic message. But if you don't connect with that person, you don't get that generic message. You don't get any message. So since September, I have made a point. I don't care who they are. I like them back and immediately send a message. Hi. That's it. So that
mhm,
locks me into place for Match for this person if this person's a scammer.
mhm.
September,
Boy.
I have had, yeah, I counted them up yesterday when I was talking to my buddy, 97 scammers. Like I never paid attention before because it was like somebody like you don't like them back, you ignore them, all of these other things. But I'm like, I am going to like anybody and everybody that says they like me. Uh,
Mhm.
and I'm going to not only like them, I'm going to send them a message to lock in that relationship so that if they are discovered to be fraudulent, Match sends me a message. 97 messages since September.
That's insane. Wow. Did their profiles look like they could be fraudulent?
I don't potentially, right? I mean, people steal other people's photos. Usually the giveaway is, I'm so glad we met. I've been looking for, what are you looking for? Or it's some sort of generic bullshit about what they want.
Mhm.
Like, I want long walks on the beach and I want to find my true love and I want someone who's got my back that I can share the difficult times with. Blah 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 blah. Right? It's
Yeah.
boring. Um,
Like a script, they all say the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Do you feel like you 'cause I was telling you earlier, men your age are a hot commodity in the matchmaking world because we have a lot of women, 50s, 60s, 70s that are looking for partners, and men their age can date a lot younger. There's honestly just a less supply of men because there are more women than men. Men died before women, sorry. It's true. And so there are less men than women for these women to pick from. So have you felt like you are the hot commodity?
Particularly, I mean, it's
Really?
hard to tell, right? Because there's scammers and predators, and it is, looking for a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Hey, if you come down to New York, I could have like 20 dates for you in a weekend. Be
So
very busy.
that's part of the challenge, right? So that you look out for a connection and there's not people close by.
Mhm.
For it's I said to somebody, they messaged me the other day, they're like, wow, you're really far away. And I said to them, if there was a steakhouse, how far would you drive to go to that great steakhouse? If there, people go on vacations to, you know Portugal, people go on vacations to China, right? They can be like, I'm just going to go down the street, right? They put in that effort for that piece. And so if you're not getting what you want in the area that you live in, you're going to have to look further out for what
Right.
you're, for what's going to fit.
Well, I've tended to see that people that are a bit older, they tend to be more stuck in their ways a little bit and less flexible when it comes to relocating, especially if there's grandchildren nearby. It's tougher to get them to make big changes. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, you've built a life. When I was in my 20s, the last time that I was dating, I didn't have a mortgage. I had, a U-Haul that I had stuff in. Literally, I moved to New England from Florida in a U-Haul that I pulled with a pickup truck. That was my entire belonging, my entire life, right? Now I've got, 107 acres, 800-foot house full of stuff, right? That's not going to pack up easily and go someplace
Mhm.
else.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's just, and that's not in my mind a barrier, that's just the truth, right? So how do you work around that, and how do you accommodate that, and how do you make that work?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that's a piece, but there's also a piece of, I stuck in my ways sounds like I've got like these habits, like the toilet paper has to be a certain way, right? On the
Yeah.
toilet
I
paper
have to wake
roll.
up at this time and do my exercise. Like people have very
Right.
rigid schedules as they get older, I've noticed. But maybe as you get older, you're kind of like, screw it, I'm just gonna have my 5 o'clock drink at noon because I don't have to
There
work
is
tomorrow.
that piece. There is that piece. It's funny because we're sold a myth when we're younger. This is a myth that this sort of routine that you hear these high achievers, quote unquote, these influencers do, and they're like, I get up at 4 a.m. and I go to the gym for an hour, and then I come home and I read some sort of affirmation by Dale Carnegie, and then I meditate for 15 minutes. Then I take a cold shower, has to be very, very cold. And then I do this and this and this, and
Mhm,
that's going to produce an outcome. And some people buy into that and then get stuck into that, right?
mhm.
Always. Yeah.
What are some of the qualities that you're, I guess, have been looking for in a woman? Do you notice the dates feel very different than back in your 20s? Like, it's a totally different dating experience.
I think the piece that I'm looking for is the ability to evidence of commitment. That's what I'm really looking for more than anything else. So I told you about this person that I had gone out with last year, and the big piece about him was that the last relationship they were together for 10 years, and one wasn't working it out, and the other one wanted to work it out. And so somebody that when I hear somebody say something like, I'm sticking it out, or I tried to get counseling to make it work, or I pushed for this, or I hung in there, that's a quality of somebody that I'm looking for
Mhm,
because I want somebody to hang in there,
mhm,
right? If I hear somebody say, I've packed it up early, right?
mhm,
That's not a quality that I'm going to be excited about. It's this book that I wrote about collaboration. I want to see evidence of collaboration
mm. I
and
love
not
that.
evidence of ultimatums, not evidence of, what we call fait accompli, where it's like, well, I'm going here. I don't care about you.
Mhm,
Right. And I don't want to see much evidence about negotiation because by the time you get to negotiation, you're already stuck in your position.
mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Collaboration is about working it out and making it work.
Mm. I love that. I feel like there's been also a wave of, we call it the toxic positivity, where, especially on the female side, where it's like, I'm not putting up with this. I'm going to choose myself. I'm too good for this. There's almost too much of that on the women's side, where there has to be, like you said, collaboration. If someone isn't fit exactly what you're looking for, if they made one mistake, they didn't communicate the way you liked one, we cut people off way too quickly, I think, in dating now, and we're not curious about one another to, understand, why did someone have this reaction? Is it because something from their past? Like, we're just so quick to say, no, I deserve better, and that's it, and I will find someone better. And in the day, it's not really about finding someone that's better for you. I think it's just someone that you can communicate with, you have similar goals, you make each other better, and you just both are committed to seeing what happens. There's no like magic secret to get married other than that. I think people think that a perfect person will just fall in their lap and there'll be no challenges. There won't be any struggles. They'll just be easy peasy and that's it, which is so unrealistic. And I don't know how to shake people enough to let them realize that you just have to pick someone and just try to make it work. That's all it is.
That well, you just hit them. That is exactly it, right? Because if you look at how we are as people, like I'm not perfect. I have there. Just look at my health, right? Just pick your mental health. There's been times where you were really imperfect, and maybe times that you were in the top of your game, right? There were times that I was running that I ran a marathon. I ran a marathon and a bunch of half marathons. And now I have, two knee replacements and a hip replacement. And last year I was on an obstacle course right after a hip replacement, one of those like Tough Mudder obstacle courses. And I ended up with a triple femur fracture on that piece. And so, my body has been through the ringers on stuff, right? And so if my body's changing and my body's not perfect like it was at one point, why would we expect another person to be that way too?
I really feel like people somewhere along the way got brainwashed from movies or TV and think of themselves as this perfect person, so they deserve someone perfect, even though they know they're not. But there's like that toxic positivity. They're
Yeah.
brainwashed themselves that they are just perfect. They're the best. They have this, they have that, and they need someone that matches them on every single level. But I've always said I think the most successful marriages that I've seen is where the people are not twins. They really complement each other in different ways, especially when I have clients that, want to start families. And if my male clients that they want someone who's just as educated as them or, has a really successful career, I'm like, that's great. But if you want a family, you might want to be with a woman who wants to have a family and is going to, her career could take a back seat because she's going to prioritize that part of her life. And a lot of women that I set up, they say they want families and that they will prioritize that, but I constantly find them traveling. I can't get them to schedule a day. I can't get them to respond back to me. Uh, they're just live very, very busy lives. And for me, that's telling me they're not really a good candidate for matchmaking because they're not prioritizing a relationship. I try to tell that to my male clients because if you're going to have a family, someone has to have this child and raise it.
Right. You have to figure that out between the two of you, how you're going to raise
Exactly.
the child. Or,
Yeah.
absolutely. The the other piece that is a truth of who we are is that not only are we looking for somebody perfect, but whatever that person is that we get, whoever they are, we expect that however they are and whatever we're attracted to or whatever we see to be static.
Hmm.
And the truth is that it's not, and so a great question to ask yourself if you're dating and you see and you're thinking of getting together. And I remember doing this with my spouse in 30 years ago, and we had these conversations, and I'm convinced that the foundation we laid from this was one of the reasons we stayed together. And those conversations were like, if I lost my leg, would you still stay with me? If I got in a car accident and I was paralyzed from the waist down, so I could not get an erection, would we not have sex? Would we try to figure something out? Would we open the relationship up? Would you leave me?
Wow.
And it's those questions are easy because they're physical stuff. But
Mm.
what would happen if 10 years from now I developed an alcohol problem? I had to go to rehab. Would you be willing to get rid of all the alcohol in the house so I could stay sober? Or would you ditch me? Right? Or
Mhm.
I got depressed, or I got fibromyalgia, or the list and list goes on.
Yeah.
We meet somebody and we expect the fact that they drink beer, we drink beer, they like backgammon, we like backgammon, that those things are going to stay together and we don't have to do any other work to keep things going. That is not true. That is wholeheartedly, I'm telling you, not true. If anything, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be like, who is this person? And you're
Mhm.
going to have to make a choice to fall in love again. That's not a bad thing. That's the truth.
Mhm. I love that you said that because so many people, the qualities that they're looking for in a partner are how much money does he earn? What's his job? Where did he go to school? Okay, is she, a size 0? How good does she look? These very superficial things that really will not take you into decades of marriage. It really is someone that you just have fun being with. You could have no deck of cards, no backgammon, nothing. You can be bored at the airport, but the two of you can just entertain one another because being around each other, it just feels like home. And it has nothing to do with where they went to school or where they were born or anything like that, because you could marry someone that's a very high earner. He could develop a gambling problem and lose all the money, or he could lose his job. And I mean, I always tell this, but I had an ex where he earned 400,000 a year as a lawyer, and he had to sit me down one day, and he told me that he actually spent every dollar that he earned keeping up with friends on trips and party supplies. I'll leave it at that. And he had nothing to show for it. And as that me, I was thinking, oh wow, he's this high earner, he's going to be a great provider, and it's not necessarily true. And, I tell women, like, don't look at what how he earns, look at how he spends and how financially responsible he is. That's going to be because we know finances in relationships, that's always a big issue. And then for men, if you're so fixated on how someone looks, what if she gains a lot of weight when she's pregnant? Are you just never going to be attracted to her again? How are you going to stay together after something like that? Or what if, she has some kind of disease and something happens? If you're only with her for her looks, you're going to leave her pretty quickly. And, we all age, we all get older, we're all going to look different.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, you
And
burn yourself, you
yeah,
do this, right?
anything can happen. And I think that's so true. I was just chatting with someone else I had it on the podcast. He has an organization that helps wounded veterans. And he was saying the highest divorce rate in the veteran or in the armed service community are soldiers that come back from war that have lost limbs, and their young spouses, they're like early 20s. They didn't sign up for this. And so now, they're 21, 22, and they have a spouse who's lost, an arm, a leg, and they don't know how to handle this. And, even though they said for better or for worse, for sickness and in health, they didn't really understand that it could actually happen, especially so quickly. And they have
Yeah.
very high divorce rates, which is really sad because that's when you need someone the most.
Absolutely. We see that when it's like when people are saying for better, for worse, for sickness and health, they have their finger behind them and they got their fingers crossed because they don't really mean it. And so having these preemptive discussions about what does this mean? Right? If you're dating somebody in the armed forces, you're they could easily come back with Pete. They're going to wake up in the for the next 40 years, they're going to wake up suddenly in the middle of the night screaming. Are you willing to put up with that?
Yeah, I
Right?
think when people are young, they just don't really think of the worst case scenarios. And even with my husband, if I try to talk about hypothetical situations, he's like, that's not going to happen. I don't want to, he can't think about anything around death. Even when we're going through our prenup process, some questions around who's going to be the beneficiary if one of us passes away and questions around death. And he was very uncomfortable answering that. But I kind of forced him, like, we have to get through this and talk about some of these things. And I'm really glad we had the prenup experience because that made us a lot closer. I got to understand him a lot better. And finally, he could talk about, God forbid, worst case scenario situations. What are we going to do? We have to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about somebody who wants to have kids, right? And they find somebody. What happens if the woman miscarriages 3 times in a row? Are you done with her? Like, is that the kind of person you wanna be? Somebody who is that right? Those are you and I were talking, I think, before the show started about the differences between, like a foundational piece in a house, right? And the person that I'm meeting now that has all these foundational pieces, really has their shit together. And compared to, falling in love with these superficial things like looks or this or that, all these things are gonna change. That's like the paint on the house. It's gonna weather off. The important thing is what's the foundation like? Because if you've got a house with a shitty foundation that leaks, it can be beautiful until it all collapses, right?
Exactly. I mean, I have some of my clients that are older are still some of my pickiest clients. I had one client, she was very particular about where any of her matches would be living and if they owned or rented. And she wanted to know the exact zip code. And she was very specific because, she's like, well, that determines what country club he goes to. And she was just very fixated on the exterior things and how it would look to be with someone that came from a certain background, and she wanted to make sure he could keep up with her financially. I was thinking, you're in your 70s. Well, why don't we just, if you meet someone you like and you make more money, why can't you treat him? I don't understand why that's a problem. And so, older women, they're like, I'm not going to be a nurse or a purse. And that's like their
I
tagline.
have a friend who said that's almost that same thing. She's like 1 year older than me. And she's like, I am not dating anybody because I am not going to be somebody's nurse.
Yeah.
I'm
Is it
like,
and I'm
what?
thinking like, well, okay, obviously you don't wanna go into a relationship having a complete dependent, but if you meet someone that you fall in love with and God forbid something happens, you're just gonna dump them and leave them, like, that's not right either. But when you're dating in your older years, I mean, there's more of a possibility there's gonna be some health issues and some things are gonna come up. That's just part of the territory. So either, you don't date and because you don't want to deal with any of that, or you have to be open-minded. And I mean, one of the guys I wanted to set her up with, he was so handsome and healthy, and he had just moved to in her area, so he was renting, and she just said, "Absolutely not. He's renting. I know that building. It is just not good enough." And I said, "Okay, if it's not good enough, it's not good enough."
Yeah. The unfortunate piece is that this piece is greater than a dating thing. Like, we're looking for those types of folks. They're looking for a specific thing that says, once I have X, Y, and Z, I'll be happy. We're chasing this equation, this magic equation that we're sold someplace. Once I live in this house and I have this car and I go to this vacation spot and I have this purse or I have this jacket, I will be happy.
Mhm.
And the reality is those things are not the key to happiness. Key to happiness is someplace in here. If getting things and having a spectacular life was the key to happiness, then rich people wouldn't kill themselves. We wouldn't read about movie stars, overdosing,
I know.
right? How can you overdose? You're a movie star.
I
You think
know.
you have it all.
I
No, it's
know.
not
I've
it.
spoken to women that were married to very successful, powerful men, and they all have horror stories to share where there is abuse and there's no love between them, and or never they never even saw them. I think we glamorize money and excess and all of that, but in reality, more money, more problems. And the people that I know personally from matchmaking or even from friends that are my wealthiest friends, they've had more problems when it comes to relationships than, my friends that are just kind of more normal. So yeah, definitely it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be happier. And I tell people the end goal is not to be married, the end goal is to be happy. Because there's plenty of married people that are unhappy, and that's not the goal. You want to be with someone that adds to your life. You don't want to just get married to get married. It's the biggest decision that you'll ever make. Have you had any like funny dating experiences or stories since you've been dating in this age range?
I remember you said funny. I actually have had some horrific but I'm not going to share them because they're like it is the fact that people are able to connect over the phone, and then next thing you hear, they want to do crazy things. I'm not going to go more into detail of that. They're interested in doing some being intimately with you in a
Huh.
crazy kind of way, or you
Wow.
and other stuff, and you're like, how did that ever happen? How did you reach out to me? Um, yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
it,
Wow.
there's a piece of, like I said, this is the only barrier for a lot of folks. This is where they're fishing. I want to share this one little story piece for you that I just discovered. This is one of the pieces about this is the first article that I wrote on Match.
Mhm.
Match has, and if you are interested in this, you can just Google Match.com scam and you will find it because Google has it like number one out there on this piece. And so Match is invested in you staying on their platform
Mhm.
hugely. I mean, if you're subscribing and they advertise that they give you a free like. If you like somebody and they like you, then you can communicate for free. That's one of their gimmicks.
Mhm.
Well, I found out because I had a friend who was dating and we lived close to each other and we connected and I could see that person. And so I was like, I liked them and then I disappeared. Match pulled me out. We were not subscribers, and they Match pulled me out of their search results. And so Match is actively playing people to give you the impression that there's a lot of people out there. The last thing I did when I went to Match is they have like this super subscriber level. No, it's like super platinum. It's expensive. But when you see that, you can see who the other subscribers are on Match.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you don't see whether someone's a subscriber or not. You just see that they live down the road for you. I am telling you that 80% of the people on Match are not subscribers.
Right.
So they're never going to reply to you. You don't have a subscription and you're on these dating sites and you're connecting with folks. It's I don't know what you're doing. I have no idea what you're doing because you're not real they can't reply to you. It's all set up to get you to subscribe,
Totally.
and it's all this pitch to get you to give them your money, not for you to find somebody else. And I only found that when I was like, I think I'm going to pay the extra $100 or whatever it was so I can see whether someone's really a subscriber or not. Because those are the only people that are going to get your messages. Everybody else gets a message that says, hey, so and so likes you.
Right.
Subscribe to find out more. Hey, so and so messaged you. Subscribe to find out more. So Match is actively using you to bait other people to buy subscriptions. It's horrible.
Yeah, Hinge and Tinder and Bumble, all of those dating apps, the way they've gamified dating and have literally caused people to be addicted to swiping the way they do in casino games. And they do this thing on Hinge where when you first sign up, you get really attractive people and you're like, oh, wow. And then you get really unattractive people and they say, oh, boost your profile or pay for this, pay for that. And to get you to just so you're like, oh, maybe I'll start seeing attractive people again. And then you start feeling really bad about yourself because you're like, wow, I got really low in the algorithm that I'm only seeing people that I'm not attracted to. That I must not be getting swiped, right. Or people must not be liking me. And so people are getting really down on themselves thinking that they're just undesirable, unattractive. And I talked to so many people and they're really like messed up from the dating apps because
Absolutely.
they make you think that
Absolutely.
you're just an undesirable person, which isn't the case. And even now I talk to we know this, and I've talked to a few people recently that said, "Oh, I sent a like to someone on, one of the dating apps. If she sees it, she sees it." And, it's like she might not see it. Like it could be buried, kind of, she might not even be active on there. I wouldn't put all of your eggs in that basket that she's going to see your like on a dating app because she really might not see it,
No, they're not gonna see your like.
and it's,
You're gonna be masked, and they're gonna
mhm.
say subscribe to see the result.
Yeah, I think it's better, like, find them on, Instagram or Facebook or even LinkedIn and message them there. You're more likely to get a response from them than I think on a dating app. I think a lot of people, I mean, especially people that get a lot of likes on dating apps. I have one client, he will never cross out a like because he wants to see how many he can get. So he's in the thousands now, and it's like his ego boost. But it's really, I mean, he has so many in there, and he wants me to go in there to kind of sift through and find good profiles. And there's just a lot to go through. There's thousands of people that have liked him on there, and it's like that's not a good way to reach him. Like find him on Instagram, message him there. He's more likely to respond
Yeah,
to you.
right. It's how we have shifted from the time when we were back to when we first started, how things have changed since
Hmm.
the '80s, right? You never had the environment that you were in telling you you were worthless and you needed to do something else to do that, right? You just had to deal with the person who was in front of you. Now you've got to sort through the person who's in front of you, fake people, you know, people that have issues that should be
People are
that
thousands of
are
miles away.
and it's and then the apps themselves are playing your emotions for
I
your money. That was never a piece in the dating.
I know, I know. I feel at least now there have been more in-person communities that have popped up, like pickleball or backgammon is an example. There's places to meet like-minded people more now than I think ever before. So I think people are sick of all the online dating and misdating and are looking for places to connect in real life. My matchmaking business has definitely gotten really busy. I feel like with anything, whenever we get too much on the technological side, we kind of swing the other way. We want to go more analog.
Right. Right.
There's been so many new dating apps that have come out, in the last 6 months that are trying to solve for bringing AI into matchmaking or dating, and, all the OG dating apps are trash, ours are gonna be better, but in reality, you're still a company, you still need to make money. It's all the same people, the people aren't going to be different. It's the same people that downloaded, Tinder, that downloaded Hinge, that were on Match, like, they're all gonna be the same people. There's no new hidden well of people. I think that's the biggest thing people need to understand. Any way you can connect with someone is great. So you just have to be cautious of, who you give information out to, making sure it's not a scammer or fraudster. Never send anyone money online. I think that's like number one, but a lot of people still do it. They don't, they fall for these stories of I'm a
Why do
vet.
you think that happens? Like, that blows me away. Like, I don't cannot fathom why somebody would send somebody else money online. And because you hear it all the time, I'm like, of course you wouldn't do that. That's kind of like, you should always wear clothes when you go out in public type of thing.
You build relationships with people if you're calling every day and texting. And if you're really lonely and you haven't had anyone to talk to in a long time, and all of a sudden this person pops up online that gives you a lot of attention, you fall in love with them, whether it's real or not. You really truly fall in love with them. And when that person says, "Oh, I can't pay rent this month. I'm gonna have to live in my car." What do you do? Of course, looking back, I'm sure the people are like, "Oh, yeah, like I shouldn't have done that." But they really know, I mean, they're professionals. They know how to get to your heartstrings and they know how to get the money out of you. So, with my mom, I told her, like, don't accept any Facebook requests from anyone you don't know. Never send anyone anything. Yeah, it's really sad. I actually was scammed by someone, that I met on one of the dating apps. Mine was a different story. I met him in person. He told me he could do, a dating event at the Brooklyn Nets at a basketball game. And he even showed me, oh, the receipt. He paid for, a box at the game. It was an event. I got people to sign up and they gave me money. And he's like really insistent on getting the money up front. I said, no, no, I'm not, I'll give you a little bit, but I'm not giving you, all of it. And then sure enough, the day of the game, he was like, "Oh, it got canceled. Something happened." And that's when I knew I got scammed. And I was like, "How could I be so stupid? I can't believe I fell for this." But that's the thing. Like they go for people that are trustworthy. I'm more of a trusting person.
Right.
And so, it happened. I did get my money back after I like dragged him through the dirt online, but a lot of people aren't so lucky.
It's this middle road that you're talking about here, because earlier we are talking about this like toxic get away from me. You've crossed one thing, right? So you have to stay away. And then there's this other piece of like being open, right? You have to navigate through that through that maze. I think you hit on a really important thing here when you said dating and you hinted at it, dating as an antidote to loneliness, right? You really need to be secure about who you are and not chasing a solution to your loneliness. Get a dog. So I said to my friend, he's like, I'm lonely. I'm like, you need a dog. Every time I talk to him,
And
I'm
then
like,
go to the dog
get a
park
dog
and
yet?
make some friends. Your community is the biggest thing I think missing in modern society is that people have stepped away from church culture. They're like bowling leagues. People don't do those things as much as they used to anymore. And we live, online playing video games. Even a friend was telling me that his son was texting with his girlfriend. They're sitting next to each other. Like we're just so used to doing everything online now or on our phones. We need to have community. We need to find places where we can find like-minded people, or if it's a book club or anything that just brings you joy with other humans, especially in person. And when you start doing things like that, you naturally meet more people and you could have some romantic interests as well. So I encourage people find a
That's how it
community.
worked in the old days. You'd meet
Exactly.
people at those
We need to go
events.
back. We need to go back to how we were in the beginning. But so what's next for you in this chapter of life?
Boy, I'm not really sure. I am my big focus right now has been it's gonna make it sound strange to be able to run again, and because I was really laid up with this triple femur fracture. I had to get flown to Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, and they had to repair me. They put this like titanium zip ties to hold my bones
Oh God.
together, and it was quite the recovery. I even ended up on Meals on Wheels. Um, uh, donate my time. I volunteer in a lot of areas. I'm a volunteer firefighter and I'm a volunteer EMT instructor. And I volunteer to teach Tai Chi for seniors, the youngest in the group. And so it was funny that I got hooked up to teaching seniors. I've been teaching now for about 6 years through the senior center. And so I ended up calling them and I'm like, all right, I'm not of age for Meals on Wheels, but I really could use some Meals on Wheels because I'm not eating.
Uh,
Because I was on crutches. I couldn't put weight on my foot for 12 weeks. And it was like Meals on Wheels was great. And so there's lots of community out there that you can join in to get involved with. I said that to my friend with the dog. I'm like, come on, you're
mm,
volunteer.
I
You got
love that.
time on your hands. It's here. It will shift your life.
Exactly, like, no better way for your own self-esteem and self-worth than to do something for others, especially when I have clients that come to me like, "I'm so depressed, no one likes me, this guy didn't text me back." I'm like, "Go for an hour a week, volunteer somewhere. I guarantee you will not be coming to me with this nonsense anymore. You won't care
Well,
about or text you back." It puts life in perspective.
it puts yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. Puts
And
life
where
in
can people find more about you and your books?
You can easily Google stalk me, easy peasy. G. Scott Graham, there's my name right there. All you have to do that, you will see I've been on hundreds of podcasts. You can see my books. Actually, just produced my first piece of recorded music, which
Oh,
is
wow,
now on Spotify,
good for you.
and that was kind of exciting. And so I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere.
Good for you, not slowing down.
No, no, I want to write 100 books before I die.
Wow,
So
well,
I,
you're a
and
third
it's
of the way there.
32. I got 68 more to go.
That's beautiful. Well, so nice to chat with you. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us about your life. And I feel like we could have talked for a lot longer.
This was great. Thank you, Anna. This was really great.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye.